Hey guys, how's it going? As I stated in the previous few videos, we'll be continuing our series on each theatrically released Spider-Man film, and as I'm sure as the title suggests, we'll be diving into The Amazing Spider-Man. Following the mixed bag that was Spider-Man 3, it made sense for a new version of the character to be brought to the big screen, and Andrew Garfield was definitely an interesting choice. I think he's a phenomenal actor, and while his supermodel level looks make him a hard sell as a nerdy loser at times, he really shines as the web slinger. This version of Spider Man is more witty and quippy when he has the mask on, and I think the additional comedy is very beneficial for this film, as this universe in general tries to stay more grounded and less campy than the Sam Raimi trilogy got. The main love interest has also been switched up as Gwen Stacy shines, and the dynamic between her and Peter is far better and more believable than the dynamic between MJ and Peter in the Raimi trilogy. I know Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield dated at a point in time, and the chemistry definitely shows on screen when the two are interacting. Peter's origin story this time around is a little bit different as well, as Peter's parents were involved in some kind of scientific research before they went missing when he was a young boy. As a teenager now, Peter is still hung up on his parents' disappearance, and his search for answers leads him to Dr. Connors, a scientist who was working with his dad on something important prior to his death. In an effort to find more information and potentially meet Dr. Connors, Peter sneaks into Oscorp with someone else's ID. This eventually leads Peter to finding himself in a room full of radioactive spiders, and well, I'm pretty sure you know how the rest of the story goes. In the Sam Raimi trilogy, Peter becoming Spider Man was very much a random occurrence that could have happened to anyone in theory, but in this film, Peter is more active in creating his destiny as Spider Man, which I think is a fresh take on the character. I think this forms this version of Peter into a smarter character who is always destined to save lives in one way or another. After being bitten by a spider, Peter seeks out Dr. Connors at his residence and tells him he's Richard Parker's son. The two instantly bond over the research that Connors and Peter's father were doing together. Peter because he wants to learn more about his father, and because he's currently experiencing cross species genetics post spider bite, and Connors because he seeks to perfect cross species genetics in order to grow his right arm back. The two end up working together and share some great on screen chemistry, and this personal connection to the eventual villain of the film is a Spider Man staple, and makes the clash between Spider Man and the Lizard more emotional. Speaking of emotions, when Peter forgets to pick up Aunt May due to running late from working with Dr. Connors, we get this film's variation of the with great powers comes great responsibility scene when Uncle Ben says, "You're a lot like your father, and that's a good thing. But your father lived by a philosophy. If you could do good things for other people, you had a moral obligation to do those things." To which Peter responds with, "That's nice. That's great. So where is he? Where's my dad? He didn't think it was his responsibility to be here and tell me this himself." For a film full of superhero action sequences and that had to follow in the footsteps of the immensely successful Sam Raimi trilogy, I think this Uncle Ben speech and his subsequent death scene is the crowning achievement of The Amazing Spider Man. They managed to make this just as emotional as it was in Tobey's first Spider Man, but yet feel different. With the added importance placed on his father's death, it adds a new and interesting dynamic here where Uncle Ben is giving Peter his father's ideology. But Peter is just too emotional to be able to accept it because he still hasn't accepted the death of his parents. This is why he's still searching for answers about their disappearance at the start of the film, and why he storms out of the house in this moment. Tragically, Peter's failure to accept the death of his father leads to the death of his uncle, as his uncle is killed while out trying to find Peter. Though he spirals emotionally for a bit after his uncle's death, Peter accepts his father's ideology and becomes a hero who always does his best to help others. He understands that his powers give him the ability to do things that the police simply can't, and with this ability comes a moral obligation to do so. This is ultimately why this film works so well. Peter is simply just a teenager trying to do the right thing and is learning as he goes, which is very much akin to life in general, minus the superhuman strength and all the spider like abilities for most of us. All in all, The Amazing Spider Man serves as a great coming of age story that presents our protagonist with a great moral quandary to overcome, a great love interest, and a complicated personal connection to our main antagonist. All these elements really come together to create a solid entry into the Andrew Garfield era of the character. If you enjoyed this breakdown of The Amazing Spider Man and are interested in further explorations of screen stories, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe. And if you feel like I missed anything, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.